Hey there, this is Darren LaCroix sitting down with my co-coach, Mr. Caveman, 4,000 shows. Like, that's ridiculous, which is one of the reasons he's one of the best coaches that I've ever worked with. So, Kevin, we are two experts sitting down with the experts.
Yes.
One of your friends. Yep. I'll let you introduce him.
Yes. This is playwright, actor. You've seen him on The Young and the Restless. You've seen him on Unsolved Mysteries. You've seen him on literally every show there is. Please put your hands together and welcome Mr. Brad Slaight.
Woo! He's also a writer, too.
Yeah,
he's
like
got
13 plays
not just
published.
An actor, he's a writer, too, which is awesome.
13 plays published.
All right, so the subject of this is Kevin and I thought, well, Kevin's idea, I don't want to take his idea, I just thought it was brilliant. If you're going to be on camera and on video, what does it take to look good? So we thought we would ask a guy who does this for a living for his insight. So Brad, thanks for joining us.
Well, nice to be here at Stage Time University. That makes me feel young to be back in the university.
Right? We're all students. So could you start off by telling us about different shots that can be used and what the advantages are of each and disadvantages of each, starting like with a long shot all the way up to an extreme close-up?
Yeah, I mean,
start with what they are and then how they work. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and that's predominantly in film. I mean, we still use it in video. If you shoot a video like a film, you're going to be doing different shots, which is, I like TV a little better only because if they've got, it's multi-camera, it can get everything at once with a film, or if you're breaking down your video into separate shots, you have to reset things up. Because if you're going to do a close-up, it's different lighting, it's a different back, you got to make, so there's a lot of things you got to keep in mind. So we'll take it from, of course, in a movie or a TV show, establishing shot. Usually outside of a building, it's to kind of just, get the location down. Where are you? What do you, before you move in to the long shot or the wide shot. I mean, it's called a lot of different things, but again, you go from the establishing shot, you move it down to the long shot. Maybe now you're in the room. If it's an actor and he's another actor, you see kind of everything. But then you're going to move in closer. So these are all done in different, especially if you got one camera, you're doing these each time with the same action. So as an actor, as a performer, you need to remember what you're doing. I mean, it's still got to be spontaneous, but I shot a short film recently and I helped edit it. And I noticed in the long shot, I had my phone in the left hand. And then when we got to further shots, somehow it magically got over to the right. And that's a problem for the editor because he's got to go, oh man. So he's got to use maybe an over-the-shoulder shot or whatever to cover that if you make a mistake. Now, sometimes if it's a big budget, they've got people that, that's their job is to say, hey, last shot. Even eating food, but we'll get to that. So we go from the long shot, then there's the master shot. And usually most of the stuff I've done is when I'm filming as an actor, or even if I write something and then we shoot it as a video, the master shot's important because that's what you're going to use, but then you're going to have all these other shots to go to if you get in trouble. You're going to use the master shot the most probably. Or it depends on what whoever's directing it, maybe they like close-ups better. So that master shot is you go through the whole scene. So you have a scene. The scene is, 3 pages. You do the whole scene. You do all the lines, you get all the movements, you do everything. Then you got to break it up because if you rely on just the master shot, A, it's boring, and B, if there's mistakes, you have nothing to cut to. And you always have to have, that's why they use the word coverage. Do I have enough coverage? And what that means is if there's mistakes in here or if there's something that I want to change and I don't have a detailed storyboard, and I personally don't use those for my own short films because I just want to overcover everything because sometimes I edit them and I want everything. So you have the master shot. That's you run the whole scene pretty much from not a distance, but you're framing everything. And then you're going to move into the maybe a two-shot. A two-shot is when two actors, kind of like how you guys are there, might be a little further away. And it gives a sense of their relationship, maybe even their size, that kind of stuff. Two shots are used not as much as the master shot or the close-ups. Then you're going to move in for the close-ups, or you're going to go, well, do the close-ups first. I mean, it depends on who's directing and what order all of this is done. So after the two-shot, then we go in for the close-up. So we'll go into Kevin, and we'll say, you know, and it varies in terms of how tight you want that. There's an extreme close-up, which the older you get, the more you hate them. Because I always say, the smaller the screen, the better I look. I look pretty good on an iPhone, but on a...
So this shot, the shot that we have of you right now, what would that be?
This would be a close-up. I would consider this a close-up, only because it's only me and it's somewhat tight. When I do self-cast, when I audition, and now they're doing a lot more auditions where you do it at your home, which saves driving and a lot of harassment. Not harassment, but a lot of grief of just getting to an audition, getting one shot at it, and then it's over. So they tend to always say this: we want a long shot or a wide shot, body shot, so they see you from your feet to your head, and then they want the scene done in a close-up. Not an extreme close-up, but they usually don't even use close-up. They say from shoulders up, or mid-waist up, because they want to see. That's where they really see and hear that. Once they've established their size, they can go into the acting. There's also different kinds of like dolly shots, where you'll see sometimes when they're showing the scenes behind making a movie, you see a guy on like this train track and he's going along. I got a really neat one in yeah, and somebody's pushing him and they got the camera. Now I think Robert Rodriguez was the one who was saying his first movie, El Mariachi. I think they put it in the shopping cart,
Yeah.
and put the camera in there. Whatever it takes, I've had some. I like dolly shots because you always look. It's just more theatrical. And then there's the ones where it's an upshot, where they're looking up at you. It makes you bigger, or if it's down, if you want to make someone look smaller.
And that helps with emotion too, right? Convey the emotion of the character.
Yeah. If it's a down shot, you're looking down at somebody, and they're. They did that a lot in Pulp Fiction, I think. They had when those two guys in their two shots, sometimes they go high or low to give it an effect. It's all effect. I mean, it really is a director's choice. If I'm writing a script, I put very little stage directions in there. Even with stage plays, I kind of like to let the director make their decision on how they want to move things around, or in a shooting script. Maybe they want an extreme close-up. I did one for Homeless Shakespeare where the director for that, when it went into the homeless guy, because he looked real crazy, just an extreme tight close-up, and it was effective, because you really, when you're that tight, as an actor, as I talked to Kevin about before anyway, and he knows, if you're an actor, if you're a performer of any kind, the bigger the audience, the bigger you can get. But when you're dealing in front of a camera, I call it caressing the camera. The camera is who you're talking.
Can you stop right there?
Yeah.
Because embarrassingly, I have to go to the bathroom really badly.
Well, that would be caressing yourself.
Yes, that's what I'm going to do.
Bam.
So as I was saying, with caressing the camera, it's kind of that sounds like a weird term, but it means that you're aware of who you're playing to. On stage, whether you're giving a motivational speech, you have an audience. You have to be aware of them as a group, and you have to make sure you can be heard. You have to make sure that you're animated enough to keep it interesting. You don't want to just stand there like a wooden statue. So when you're in front of a camera, if it's a close-up, they're right there. You don't have to do much. But what you have to do is be aware that it's there, but make it a person, if that sounds kind of funny. But you have to, who are you talking to? And sometimes you're not, I'm looking at the camera now, oftentimes, and I'll always ask in auditions because they're never always that clear, where am I looking? Most of the time they want you to look directly off to the camera because you're reading with somebody else that's sitting in a room, usually the casting assistant. So you don't want to just look at the camera because that's unnatural. But in close-ups, you know, the same thing. Who are you talking to? Where are they in relation to where you're standing? So,
What would
but the same, huh?
So if I can just ask a quick question. So one of the tips I learned early on when I was auditioning, because I used to do some small commercials, nothing like what you've done, but one of the best tips I got was to get comfortable with the lens was to put like an old school camera up in one of the rooms in your house, and every time you pass it, just like look at it and talk to it like it's a person. So it's like practice talking to a lens. And so that was helpful to me, which is one of the reasons I'm more comfortable. But what would you suggest if somebody, you know, has to do a speech now online or virtually this way? How could you get comfortable talking to that lens like it's a person?
Yeah, well, and you get a little thrown because most of the time, if you're going to do it, it's on your computer. You've got either a camera at the top of the computer or it's clipped on. And I do a show called the 1 Minute News Hour, and it's 1 minute. I do news stories, but you know, I write them that day. I write the jokes, and then I shoot it. So there's not a lot of time. I mean, you got to know the copy. So the more comfortable you are with what you're going to say, and I know with speeches, you don't always write it all out and then memorize it, like, because sometimes that will make it a little stilted. But the thing is that to play in front of a camera, you have to be comfortable with it. And whether, you know, what your idea of getting used to that, or if you want to see a person's face on the camera, you know how that old joke about picture people nude, you know, you're not as nervous. The same thing. You can picture, you know, who are you talking to? If you're talking to online and you're talking to a group of people, make that an audience that's sitting, but they're all sitting right there in that frame. You know, because if you start looking around, and that's the other thing, is keep it small. Because if you start moving around a lot and do this kind, it's very distracting. The eyes are so important. They communicate. If you watch TV or movies and they go in close on somebody, even if it's just a medium close, most of the acting they're doing is with their eyes. Their mouth moves and they say the lines, but you can tell. And the more you can invest in your eyes when you're giving a speech, because that's confidence. The confidence comes in the eyes as much as the words. So if I'm talking to you now and I'm trying to make a point to you, the more my eyes are engaged in that point, the more people are going to believe what I have to say.
So, yeah, because right now as we're sitting here, we're looking at you as you're talking, but actually if we were doing it right, we would be looking here, right straight into the camera,
exactly,
as opposed to looking down at you, which makes us look like we're not even paying attention to what we're doing.
And I'm not looking at you only because when I talk, I feel like the 1 minute, I've trained myself to talk to the camera.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, yeah, your eyes are, and yeah, it's a simple thing, but it's a habit that I picked up over the years. Just, I do online stuff like that show, and I know the effect because I've seen it. You know, I used to, when I was on the soap, one day said, "What kind of acting are you in? Method acting?" Or you? And I said, "Well, 2 days on the soap opera. One day, I said, I'm going to do as much. It's not pure method, but I'm going to be so into this character that, you know, I know the lines, so I'm just going to let him really. I'm just going to be that guy that day, that weaselly little guy." And do it, and then the next day I'm going to be more like what Spencer Tracy used to say: hit your mark, say your lines. That, you know, you do by row, still be the character, but it's like, you know, you're more technically aware. And I looked at both days, I couldn't tell the difference between my performances. Because it's if you can train yourself. So in other words, if you know the camera is right there that I'm looking at now, I can kind of visualize. I know you guys are down here on my screen, but I can kind of keep in my mind what you look like, who you are, who I'm talking to. And I know I have to sell it to this little box. And a lot of times performance is selling things.
That is a huge tip for the Toastmasters who are going to be competing online, is to really sell it into the lens.
Yeah.
As opposed to, it's so nice to be here at the competition. It's great to see you, blah, 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 blah. But to sell it straight in.
And not look at yourself. If you have a monitor, in other words, that's the worst thing you can do is, say you set up a camera and it's got a little screen somewhere on your computer that shows what you look like. In this case, on this platform, it's right underneath the camera. Don't look at yourself. Don't look, you can when you're setting things up and go, okay, that's how I look. All right, forget about yourself, because then you get judgmental and you get distracted. If you can get rid of that screen, that's great.
So put a piece of construction.
Yeah, put a piece of tape on it. Talk to the lens. The lens, you don't exist here. You exist right here. And I know that's where you're at. And I know that's who I'm addressing. And you just got to get over the fact that it's a piece of hardware and make it like you're talking to an audience.
You could even get like a little picture of someone you love and put it right next to the lens.
Exactly. Although sometimes then you'd be looking just like, and I imagine for Toastmasters, you'd want to look straight on, as opposed to if I gave my speech here, it looks a little awkward. Who's he looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to caress the camera and deliver it to that one person. And even though there may be many watching it, it's one-on-one in these cases, or one-on-two, but the focus should be,
Well, and that's one of the things that we stress when, what is Mark's phrase? Speak to one, or talk to one, speak to all.
Craig, yeah.
That's a good phrase.
Yeah.
No, that's true. And that's why a lot of times, like even on Broadway, they do Broadway musical, but then they film it for the screen. What was the How to Succeed in Business? No, not How to Succeed. It was the producers. And I went to see the movie and I go, wow, they're still doing it like they're on a stage.
Yeah.
It was too big, and
so all right. So just out of curiosity, so let's put you on the spot here. Can you take a line and deliver it the way you would deliver it if you were on a stage, and then deliver it into the camera the way you would deliver it if you were filming an audition?
Sure. Right? Sure. Yeah, I do that. Say I was talking to a big group of people about my latest stage play. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for coming. I'm very excited about my new play, Copies. Some of you are aware of what it's about, but if you're not, it's about a group of teenager clones. And they attend a place called IMU, which is a training center for clones before they make their transition into the world of their clone, their real person that they were cloned from. And they go there to kind of get educated. So the fact that you are all here, all of you, it really makes me happy, because it means there's some energy in the room for my play, and that hopefully you'll all want to do it. It's available from Samuel French starting next week.
Okay.
I would just do it that way. I know in an auditorium I'd have to be louder, I'd have to be more animated, but if it's done with the eyes, I can't emphasize that enough. And a subtle movement too. If you want to exaggerate something, you don't have to go like that. It's more of a keep it small and do as much as you can with your eyes. Because if you're engaged and they can see that your eyes are like, they've got some energy behind them, and that you really are excited about what you're talking about, it feeds. They pick that up. It's subtle.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say know your copy, because one of the things that I hammer home to, especially Toastmasters people who are entering the competition, I always say to them, I want you to rehearse this 7-minute speech 50 times before you speak it in public again. And they go, ooh. Right? But a person who won 2 years ago did it 200 times before she did it in the finals.
Did she have copy there in front of her?
No.
Watching
During the competition, no.
It was all it's all memorized.
Yeah, they write it and deliver it.
And deliver it that way. Well, it also gives them a sense of they can improvise a little bit if they, because you're never going to say the same thing the same way twice.
Right.
You might. Yeah. I mean, most actors can, but it's always going to be just a little different. Yeah. And I know that, like in auditions.
Well, that happened during Darren's World Championship speech. That part. He found himself about to step on a laugh that was just going on and on and on. And he literally went to stop himself from talking.
Like, shut up, Darren, shut up, Darren, shut up.
That's great. Well, that's because you were so into it. At least you were aware, because sometimes people get a little nervous and they lose the sense of awareness about how it's going, and they become stiff and awkward. And if you're stiff and awkward, the audience feels uncomfortable. If you're comfortable on stage, I've seen comedians that their material sucked, but they were just so damn likable. They could do anything because you liked them and you wanted them to succeed. I've seen other comedians.
I built a 20-year career on that.
Huh?
I built a 20-year career on that.
Yeah, I think you're pretty. You've got it down. But in the sense of, like, if I go to an audition, and this is a tip: if you ever go in an audition, it might apply to Toastmasters, but always know your lines as much as you can. Sometimes you get it a couple days before, so you can memorize the scene. But always hold your script for the first audition, because you're going to get in that room, and if you go up in your line, it's like it's over. So,
wow.
I mean, I've done it before where I've gone in there and it's maybe 5 lines, but even 5 lines, hold the paper and use it to gesture with, or, you can incorporate it in your character. But what happens if all of a sudden you go up? Mm-hmm. One of my audition stories, the one I laugh at, but at the time it killed me, is I was auditioning for something at Paramount. And I'm doing the scene with the woman casting director. And she says, "I have to say, you are the best I've ever seen." And I stopped and I said, well, thank you. That's very nice. She goes, "It's the next line." Like, oh yeah. And I remembered it, immediately after I said that, I said, "Oh God, that's the next line," her next line. So you have to know your script, but always be prepared, because at least if you got it in your hand and you all of a sudden you just blank, and that happens, you can just take a moment and at least.
Now, would they penalize you for stopping and looking at the paper and then delivering the next line?
No, it's hard to believe as an actor, because when you walk in your room, you're sure they're out to just hate you. Mm-hmm. But they want you to succeed.
Well, sure, they want to be the answer to their trouble, to their problem of casting.
Exactly, and I'd rather look down at a line and take an extra couple seconds than to go, okay, I need to start over. Because then they've got to start. A lot of times, I'm not reading for producers. I'm reading for for a casting person. She tapes it, shows it to the director, who zips through all of the videos. Maybe they don't even watch your scene. It's like, he's not the look. He's not. And then if they find a look they like, I'll watch them and see what they do. So sometimes you put all this work into it, and maybe they don't even watch your scene.
So Brad, based on your experience, you have been doing this forever. What would you recommend for people trying to learn their lines? Any tips for learning?
Every actor will tell you a different method. I tend to just read it over and over and over and over and over again. Some people record the other person's lines, and so after they've got it a little bit in their head, they play the recording with pauses in it just for their lines, and they fill it in. They listen to it over and over and over again. Repetition is probably the only consistent factor with memorizing lines. Some people are very quick studies. When I was on the soap opera, you had to, sometimes it was a little tough because it's all in the timing. So we'd do a scene, we'd rehearse it, then the director would come out from the booth and go, okay, change this line to this, cut that, and then move this one over there. Okay, let's go.
Wow.
Yeah, okay. And they would stop if you made a mistake. But if So memorizing lines is the bane of everybody's existence as a performer. Whether you write your speech, even when you're doing your speech, if like, I want to be so familiar with it, I don't have to look down at the paper. I want to be able to engage the audience. And if you have the words so clear in your head, it frees you to engage and be more believable, to be more comfortable.
You just confirmed Kevin and all he's been teaching.
Oh, well.
How about preparation, like for your mindset before you go on, whether it's stage or on the movie set or TV set? Like, how do you prepare?
That's a good point. I mean, you go back to acting 101, and I use that even if I have to go speak to a group of people. Where did I just come from? Who am I talking to? And where am I going to go afterwards? And, you know, you don't really need to know all that, but I always think about that. I always go, okay, I'm here, but now I'm here. And I'm going to be talking to these people. And then later I'll go, but I have to focus now on this moment. Every performer will tell you, if they have the flu, if they're sick or whatever, you get up on stage and you do your thing, whether it's speaking or acting or stand-up. You feel better when you get off stage. Because the body is, even if you're a seasoned performer, if you don't have some adrenaline flowing through you, you're not going to perform well.
Right.
You're never so comfortable that you go, all right, I'm just, here I am, I'll phone it in. Because it'll look like that. Yeah. So I don't think there's ever been a time there wasn't just a little bit of nerves, because there's so many different things that can go wrong. And you're on stage, the mic could cut out. I did a comedy show up in the mountains a while back, and all of a sudden, in the middle of my act, the microphone cut out. What do? You stop, okay, everybody, we're just going to sit here. No, you have to. So I just said, hey, I went to acting class, and, you know, I started running around, and I made jokes about, you know, you have to. That's the other thing. If you're speaking, and I don't know about Toastmasters, maybe they have different rules for this, but if I'm giving a speech and something happens, a baby cries, a phone rings, a light goes out, an ambulance goes by, if you can incorporate that into what you're doing, you win the audience over easily. And maybe that's not allowed when you're in a competition situation, but everybody heard it. Everybody heard that baby.
Like giving a keynote speech or something like that. Yeah. And that's the other thing I say. The more familiar you are with your script, the more what you want is for each word to come to your lips right at the moment it needs to be spoken. You know, not before, not after, not thinking a line ahead, right at that moment. And when you get to that point, then you can incorporate all the craziness that happens around you, anything that bubbles up from the audience.
Exactly. It's kind of like the phrase of make it spontaneous. And if you don't believe how spontaneous that was, well, you should have known how many other times I did it that way. But it does. The audience wants you to make it, they want to think. And people think that about stand-up to begin with, Kevin. You guys both know that. They think you're making, a lot of people are convinced, or they don't think about it in the terms we do. They think you're making it up on the spot. It's the first time you ever said that. And if you can sell it that way, and the same thing with a speech, you may have looked at it 200 times, but if you can make it sound like you're inspired by it because this is the first time you're saying it, I think the audience picks up on that a lot.
Yes.
You know, make it fresh.
Thank you.
Kevin is getting confirmation left and right. See,
well, he knows what he's doing. You guys know what you're doing. You know what it. You know this.
Sometimes our students don't believe us, so this is great. This is great. So thank you.
Yeah, this is from a guy who you can look up his Internet Movie Database credits. Okay.
Yeah, there's and I mean, that's the thing. I'm humbled in this business only by. I mean, we all have egos, but there's always somebody doing better than you. And then the people I've worked with, then they get to the top, and it's like, you know, you read articles, I'm not going to mention names, but like famous comedians that I worked with at the Comedy Store. And I got to tell you, there have been people that I thought would be huge stars and never made it. And people that are huge stars that I never thought would make it. And so it's a fickle business. But then they get to the top, the absolute top, and they're not happy. Or, you know, they get a sitcom and then all of a sudden, well, yeah, but I want a movie career. I mean, it's never enough. And that's good. I always say that's good, because if you plateau and you're just happy with where you're at, what is an artist? An artist is a creator who has drive to create more, always want to create more. And that's why I always admire actors. They've got all the money in the world, they're on a hit sitcom or whatever, and then all of a sudden they're on Broadway, or they're doing a play off Broadway, because they love it. They love the work. They love to talk.
One more quick question. For being on camera, lights, say lighting, voice, and or what you physically look like, makeup or whatever, what would you recommend for people being on the small screen or doing video keynotes or video training on Zoom?
As well as contrast between your background and what you're wearing.
That's a good point. I used to do on self-casts. I used to, I have a green screen, and I would set that up and light it. And then if I was auditioning for a preacher, I'd put a church background. Yeah, I thought that's a little overplay for that. And I think in your situation, I don't know. I mean, you guys have a blue curtain there. That's fine. I think if you get a real background as opposed to a green screen thing, because it always kind of looks like a green screen thing.
You can tell.
And it might be distracting. Just a simple background. As far as in college, we do a stage play. Makeup was like makeup. For this sort of thing, the most you might want to do is maybe powder, in case if you have some lighting on you, or if the lighting, like in this case, I think coming from my computer screen, thank God, washes out some of the life I've had. Some powder, but brush it off so it doesn't look like you're wearing powder. But that's a mistake I've seen people make on these things, is two big mistakes. They wear too much makeup, and the other mistake is they have an inferior microphone. And there's nothing worse. I had a friend that put this brilliant little thing together to sell this thing he was doing. It was a pitch reel sort of thing, and it was really good and professionally done. He wasn't mic'd. He had the mic like I'm talking now. It's not a professional mic, and it sounds all right. You can understand me, but there's a huge difference between having a mic. Like if I was doing this and I was recording me, and I do that with a 1 minute news hour, I have a microphone, and they don't cost that much. You can get through Audio Technica like for $20. And those with a cord on it. I've finally gone to Bluetooth microphones because you get no radio interference with that. And they don't cost that much. Invest in that.
What are you using right now?
I'm not, and I'm a little embarrassed because I usually use. I'm off the camera because I'm so close to it. But even with the 1 minute news hour, I'm mic'd.
Yeah, because here's what we got right now.
Audio Technica.
Oh, Audio Technica. Well, but there's once you can get the lavaliers, and then it depends on your system. You work that out. People don't think as much about that as they should.
All right, so let's talk about a lav. Where do you find is the optimal place to position it?
I usually do it off camera. I mean, if they're pretty, the word is omnidirectional. I will wear it just off frame. When I wear mine right here or right here. So and it still picks it up very well, but yeah, it's I don't do a lot of these sort of things. So when I record, like when I do anything and I do it in front of I do two things. I record it on this little Logitech webcam, and that file. Then I at the same time, I've got a microphone into a real camera, like a little, it doesn't have to be high end. And I record the sound on that through the microphone. Then I edit it, and I sync the sound up. And it sounds difficult, but it's very easy. So I'm telling you.
Do you slate?
I just say snap. I snap, and when you look at the editing decks, you can see where the sound is. You can match it up.
Sure.
And I know it sounds like a little bit of extra work, and maybe it's easier just to, go on your camera there. But I'm telling you, the sound difference between what I'm doing now and if I was mic'd up and I could sync it up, it gives it confidence. It gives it depth. So I would suggest that's as important as how you look on camera as how you sound.
So all right. So could you and I don't know if this would work, but could you take, like, if you have a really good phone, could you run the lav into that and record it like on Evernote or something and still get the same sort of result?
Well, I've done two different ways. I've recorded stuff on my phone in my car. I do a thing called the Drive-By Wise Guy. And I drive around LA and I see stuff and I make fun of it. And I edit it, you know, I shoot hours of stuff, edit it down to about 2 or 3 minutes of the funny stuff. No, really? Everything isn't funny? No, it isn't. And you can buy a microphone that's made for an iPhone, like an Apple, you know, and it's not as good. If I really want quality sound, again, I'll put my little, you know, Canon camera next to me, mic myself up, and then sync it up with the video later.
Okay.
Because again, sound is, and maybe that's just me, but over the years I've watched things and I've done things, and I thought, you know, it sounds so much better when it's.
When people submit videos to us for critique and stuff, that's the one thing we hammer again and again and again, is the sound has to be good. You know, if you're in a big room and it's all echoey and we can't understand what you're saying, it's
hollow and it sounds amateurish.
Yeah, yeah, and these are just, you know, rehearsal tapes that they send to us, but we still say we've got to be able to hear you.
If you're thinking about it, then it's wrong what they're doing.
Yeah. Ooh.
Nice.
If you can hear it different, they're not doing it right. Yeah. So you want to do everything you can to get your point across, even if it's submitting something for critique. You want it to be your best product because they're going to be judged on that product. You know, I spend a lot of time on details. I'm almost too anal with, if I'm shooting a movie or I'm shooting a video and I have any say in how it's put together at the end, I will watch a rough cut 30 times and go, I got to change that. I get a better graphic for that. I got to, you know, it's because whoever watches it isn't going to notice all those things.
No, but you know.
Consciously. Yeah, and I don't want to watch something I made a year and go, why didn't I spend more time on it?
Nice. So, all right. So for the Toastmasters who are going to be competing and may have to do it virtually, what would be like your 3 top tips for them to be in doing this virtually? Or 5? 5? Let's go 5.
Well, first of all, of course, do it several times without it uploading it. You know, practice. You can go to any kind of platform or record it for yourself. Watch it. Watch it 5 times. See each time. You know, record it 3 times and then watch all 3. What did you like about? Was there something you did in one of them that you didn't do in the other that you should have done? And vice versa. Was there something that you went, why did I do that? Don't do it again. You can also record as many times as you want, unless it's a live feed sort of thing. You know, it may take a lot of time, but you want the best product. Record 10 of them. Give them the best.
It may end up being a live feed sort of thing, but there's still no reason not to record it.
Rehearse it
where you're going to perform it.
Yeah, I mean, I know stand-ups that they'll do their whole act to the, you know, hold a hairbrush and perform in their, you know, just to go through it. So when you do it, it doesn't seem so strange. Oh, this is strange. You've already done it 5, 6, 10 times. You know, you'll feel more comfortable because you go, yeah, this is familiar area. You know, it's like if I had to log into Google Plus for the first time, all of a sudden everything is different, you know, and you go, so be prepared. You know, it's Boy Scouts. Be prepared for everything. Have quality sound. Think about what shirt you're wearing, you know, and how does that look on camera? Test it. You know, they do that on TV shows all the time. They'll bring out a rack of ties for a host, and they'll go, that one didn't look, you know, because the camera will reflect things different. Also, make sure your hair is right. Because if you watch something later and all of a sudden you go, where did that thing come from in the back? That's all people are going to look at. Trust me. What the hell? And maybe something on the face too. If you have a little blemish or something, maybe put a little something over it. You know, I mean, but not that it can look like there's a blotch of makeup or whatever. But little things like that, people are watching your face. They're looking at right here. So be conscious of what's right here. If there's a background that you don't have, like a solid background, or it's a wrinkled background, iron it. You know, if you have a piece of cloth that you just hung there, iron it. Because people go, or if there's a stain on it. I know that sounds really petty, but if somebody's watching you, they're going to watch your face, but then their eyes are going to wander, and what's that thing in the back there, you know?
Take away all distractions.
Exactly. I could have said that would have been a lot easier than my 5 minutes.
Okay, that's all right.
Get rid of distraction.
And what you said before, I don't think this can be stressed enough. It's all in the eyes.
Amen.
It is. You know, on your camera, put a little dot. You know, you can see where the center of camera is anyway, but if you can't see where it is, put a dot around, you know, maybe on either side of it, and just kind of make that the person you're talking to. Because, yeah, if my eyes into this camera right now, if you can believe that I'm concerned about what I say, and that I can emphasize with those eyes, you're not going to do it with your mouth or your hands. I mean, if the hands are in frame, see how that distracting that is. If you have to gesture, maybe keep it low, and just so that it's natural. It's natural, but it depends on your frame size. For here, I would tend to kind of leave my hands down in my lap.
Because your hand is, by definition, going to be closer to the camera. And now my hand looks 3 times bigger than my head.
I'm going to tell you people.
And really, my hand is only that far in front of my head.
Right.
But it looks bigger than my head. It looks like I could palm my own head, when in fact I have tiny little hands when you get them next to my face.
Also, is the thing with, depending on how long are your speeches?
The speech contest ones are 5 to 7 minutes, but some people are doing keynotes virtually. It's 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah. So you have water there. I think Marco Rubio woke up the world as to how to not drink water on camera. You know, if you're worried that you're going to get dry mouth or whatever, I don't think it hurts if you incorporate it into what you're saying, because that's what people do. If they get thirsty, they drink water, but don't make it such an awkward thing that you're nervous about. Oh my God, I got to get a drink of water. How can I sneak it in there? Just do it. Just drink. Everybody has the needs for water.
Well, Brad, thanks for
one last thing. One last thing.
We'll go one more.
On the set of The Young and the Restless, what is the craziest thing that ever happened while you were shooting?
Well, I was, for me anyway, this was, and I wasn't like a series regular. I mean, I was supposed to be on it for 1 day. It turned into 2 years. So I always felt like, and I'm not a pretty boy. I mean, I had a goatee, I had greasy hair then. I played a bad guy. I loved every minute of it. And at one scene, I had to buy a brick of cocaine for I was his evil sidekick. He'd have me do the bad guy on the show had me doing all of his dirty deeds, done dirt cheap. So they had a bag of whatever powder it was. In Hollywood, it was real cocaine, budget. And I picked it up and I said, you know what? And it just kind of exploded, just fell apart.
Oh, no.
And it happened twice. And, I know the first time was like, oh, and the second time, is it the actor problem? So, but they laughed. I mean, everybody laughed. It was, it's just one of those things. But they were great people to work for. I mean, you get on a show like that, when you're not on it anymore, the guy who I was his evil sidekick got killed in the trash compactor. That was pretty much, I figured they were, and I'm not good looking, I'm not handsome, so they'll never bring me back for that.
Yeah, you weren't going to get promoted.
Yeah, I'm not going to say, hey, he could be the bad guy. He's too short and not sexy enough. But they were great people to work with. But when it was over, I mean, it was only a great gig for a couple of years, and then it's over, and it's like, like an orphan. Like you're in a nice house and they kick you back outside. And I remember telling my mother, because, well, first of all, when she was a big fan of this show. So when I told her I was going to be on it, she was so excited. And then the day came, and she was in Michigan. I was in LA, so it aired there 3 hours earlier. And she called me, and I said, oh, did you see it? And she goes, yeah. Yeah, and I could tell she was a little awkward with it. And I thought, well, what's wrong? And she goes, well, it's like, I didn't know you were that going to be a real bad guy. And I said, well, yeah. And she said, no, you did real good. And then it dawned on me as the show went on, what happened is my mother watched that show for years. And all of a sudden I walked into it. And, even though people watch those things and they think it's kind of real, she's not stupid. She knows it's not real. It really screwed up her reality.
Oh.
But as the show went on, she got used to me and she go, hey, what are you doing now? And I can't tell you. But after it was over, I said, yeah, it's, and that's show business. You have to be careful in show business. If you make really good money for a while, you may not make good money for a while. So don't blow it. And so it was like about a month later after I was off the show, and she said, well, you sound a little down. I said, well, I auditioned for something today, and I didn't get it. And she said, well, why don't you go sign up for another soap opera? I said, what do you think? There's like a clipboard over at CBS, and I go, hey, Brad's available. Let's bring him in and give him a show.
Sorry, I missed that. Could you say it again, please?
This is Suri. She'll come on with her. I said
I didn't get that.
Shut up.
Could you try again?
So I said to my mother, I said, Mom, why don't you come out here and manage me? I didn't even think about that. Go sign up for another.
I couldn't quite hear you. Could you please repeat what you said?
Okay.
Hey, Siri, tell us about Brad Slaight.
I've asked her that before, and she goes, this is Brad, shut up. So anyway, yeah, that was, but it's great when you get on a show, you realize how fortunate you are. Some guys don't. Some act like, well, it should have happened. But you get humbled. You get humbled in this business very easily. When you're on top, it's great. But then all of a sudden, the phone ain't ringing. And that's why I think Toastmasters is great for that reason, is it's reflective of society in general. Motivate yourself to go out and do things that maybe you didn't think you could do. Push yourself, develop confidence, and become successful based on your efforts, and don't wait for the phone to ring.
Well said. Brad, thanks for being with us today and letting us tap into your experience. Thank you, Kevin, for inviting him. Brad, if somebody wants to follow you, is there a way or if they want to check out your 1 minute show there?
I have a channel on YouTube. They could just put my name in. It's spelled a little funny, and then I also have a website, bradslaight.com.
Brad Slaight, SLAIGHT.com.
Yeah, and I think I've got that mirrored so that if you put SLATE in there, because everybody thinks it's that way, and I wish it was that way, then yeah, it'll take you there. I'm around.
Well, thank you, Brad. If you're watching this too, you want to learn more from Kevin and me, check out StagetimeUniversity.com. Get on our live weekly calls to get some coaching as well as get some world-class insight. We love what we get to do. He is the best humor coach I've ever seen. So you could also get coaching directly from Kevin. You go to getaspeakingcoach.com. Brad, thanks again for spending some time with us. Really appreciate it, and good luck.
And thanks for having me, guys, and good luck to everybody that gets up in front of an audience and dares to talk.
Check out StagetimeUniversity.com, where good presenters become unforgettable.